Good morning. I've heard from Mayor Weinroth. He's in some heavy traffic, but he will be joining us this morning. So with that, I will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Weiss,
Here?
Commissioner Sacks, Commissioner Marino. Here. Commissioner Bernard,
Here.
Commissioner Kerner,
Here.
Commissioner McKinley, Mayor Weinroth. We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. I would ask Mr. Pelowitz lead us in our invocation pledge. Everybody who's able, please rise.
Dear God, we are thankful. We are thankful for this day that you have given us. For its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. We pray for strength and guidance for each day as it comes, for each day's duties, for each day's problems. May we be challenged to give our best always, and may we be assured of your presence with us. Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. And let's go, are there any additions and deletions to our agenda?
Yes, there are. So item 9B1 is an add-on. It's the joint venture settlement agreement. Item 9D1 is a request for extraordinary rate increase from FCC Environmental. And supplemental information on item 7.1, which is the public hearing on the budget, is a consultant engineer's letter of approval of the budget.
Mr. Chair, can I do a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Thank
Second.
you. And we have a second? We have a second from Commissioner Marino. And all in favor, all opposed? That passes 4-0. Okay. And let's see. Next up is minutes
Mr.
from
Chair,
our
I'd like to
June.
make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 8th, 2022.
Thank you. And a second by Commissioner Marino. All in favor, all opposed? That carries 4-0. All right. We will have a receive and file on the minutes from our Citizens Advisory Committee, item A, and item B, the Small Business Advisory Committee. We have a motion by Commissioner Kerner
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Bernard. All in favor? All opposed? Let the record show that we have been joined by Commissioner Sacks, and that will carry by 5-0. Okay. Next, moving along, our consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull any items from consent?
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Commissioner Marino. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Sacks. Are there any cards? Anyone
sir.
need to speak on this?
None.
Okay, with hearing there are no speakers, all in favor, all opposed, consent agenda carries 5-0. Okay. All right, moving on. Matters by the public. There are no matters by the public?
We have no cards.
Okay. All right, now we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. And this is our continuation of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2023. And do we have any comment cards? And let the record show we have now been joined by Commissioner McKinley.
We have no comment cards.
What's up, Commissioner McKinley? We raised your rates in the service area.
I think we doubled it, no? Not that I was on.
Oh, okay. Let's see. All right. We have no comment cards. Is there we're gonna get is there a presentation or?
Yes, there is. Staff's prepared a presentation.
Okay.
And Christina Richards will be providing that presentation. Paul, do you have an intro?
Yes. Let me say that we are very pleased, staff, in getting this budget done. 3 times we've gone over it, and we finally got some satisfaction. With that, we will turn it over to Christina, our budget administrator, to handle the presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Richards, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chair. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your time today to review our final fiscal year 23 proposed budget today for adoption. Since we last met, staff has successfully managed to incorporate all of your board recommendations and guidance from June and also from April. And we prepared a summary of those changes along with a brief recap of the June presentation for the trim notice. So, to begin, when we last met in June, changes from the fiscal year 22 adopted budget included residential disposal rate increases of $6 a year for both single-family and mobile home rates, a $4 a year increase in multifamily rates. Commercial disposal rates were up about 5.6%, and that amounted to commercial low up $4 per 1,000 square feet, 0.0004 per square foot, and then commercial medium up $11 and commercial high up $64, both per 1,000 square feet. Total disposal revenues were projected up about $21 million, and that was mainly from our increased electric revenue, recycling, and pelletizer revenues. Disposal operating expenses were also up about $27.6 million, and that included SWA operating up $16.7 million and our plant operators up $10.9 million. And if you remember, we went through and itemized those details and increases in June. As of June, debt service was already down $23 million from fiscal year 22, and coverage was calculated at 195%, which again was a positive result of the board-approved debt bond prepayment, which allowed us those savings and increased our debt service coverage for this year. Our total capital budget was $34.6 million in June, and that was down $7 million from last year, and we had discussed possibly using additional reserves to fund more capital projects this year due to the savings. We left the blighted grant funded for an 8th year at $750,000, and then June's collection rates were updated using the contractual refuse rate index for fiscal year 23, which is locked in at 3.57%, and the latest fuel index that was available at the time, and that was from May 1st, and it was up almost 64% from fiscal year 22 fuel rates. So with that, here was the summary of those tip fee and assessments that were approved in June for the trim notice. And again, as published July 14th for the fiscal year 23 trim notice. Which brings us to the changes since June that staff is proposing today for adoption. So since June, residential disposal rates remain equal to the trim notice. Single family and mobile home rates are both up $6, and that's to $184 a year and $174 a year respectively, and multifamily up $4 to $100 a year. Commercial disposal rates for commercial medium and high generators are down slightly since June, and that's due to unit count updates, while commercial low remain the same, so medium and high are down about $1 and $2 per 1,000 square feet as shown. Whoops. Okay. Disposal revenues are up slightly, about $601,000, and then again, that's just due to unit count updates. Assessments are up $293,000, and tipping fees up $308,000. Disposal operating revenues are down, our expenses are down $368,000, and that's with SWA operating down $2.1 million, and that's mainly from our final insurance premiums, and then offset by an increase in contingency due to economic uncertainty and possible increases in other insurance rates. Fiscal year 23 debt service remains as proposed, which is down $23 million from fiscal year 22, and debt service coverage is up slightly from 195% to 197% today, which again is well above last year's at 134% and well above our required minimum of 110%. So the bond rating agencies like to see that. The total capital budget since June is up $13.6 million, and that includes funding for the authority's landfill closure and expansion projects, as we also discussed at the June board meeting. And since June, we included an additional 12.6 million from general reserves to fund those projects for a total general reserve contribution of 13.85 million. And again, that's for the landfill closure, expansion, and also the 1.25 million to replace the trommel at our Ref 1. The blighted grant program remains funded for fiscal year '23 at $750,000 from the board's direction in June. And collection rates were updated again, using again the fiscal year RRI of 3.57 for service areas 1 through 4 and 6. And then fuel was updated based on the latest release, which came out on August 1st, and it was still up 54%, or rather 53.7% from fiscal year '22. Therefore, staff's also proposing use of $417,000 in this budget to absorb any potential hauler increase costs during the year, because we have 2 biannual adjustments. But all in all, service areas 1 through 4 and 6 rates are down by 1% since June, and the final service area 5 rates are down 6% due to service area 5's piggyback contract, which caps their annual adjustment. Okay. So this is the chart that you've seen before. It's the historical and year-to-date consumer price index that we use to determine annual COLA. You can see from the gray line that that's the rate we're proposing today, 5.39 from board approval and in line with the state's approved COLA. And then the yellow dotted line shows where we are today as of August 10th's release. We're up 8.74%. So although it's higher this year than prior years, it's still well below the actual. These 2 charts show our single-family disposal rate history compared to the consumer price index. The top orange line is the year-to-date consumer price index. And then the green line directly under it reflects what our single-family rate would be if it followed inflation trends. So, for example, this year would be up to $223 for single-family rates, while the blue line is our actual single-family disposal rates. And as you can see, we've managed to keep them steady over the years. The 203 in the top graph, if you remember from April, was our base budget prior to the debt prepayment savings, and 184 is what we're proposing today for single family. Okay. Sorry. Okay, here's our general reserve chart. It shows our history and the use of reserves over the years, like I mentioned, that kept our rates steady. And here circled in green are the final proposed disposal rates for fiscal year '23. June's approved rates are shown to the left in gray, and then the boxes to the right show all proposed changes since June. And like I mentioned, only commercial, medium, and higher down, and that's just due to increased unit counts since June. These 2 graphs display our contractual waste index and fuel index, which we use to adjust collection rates annually and biannually for service areas 1 through 4 and 6. The RRI, again, is shown in the top graph, and it's 3.57% this year. And the bottom graph is our fuel index for biannual adjustments from the Oil Price Information Service. The collection rates that we're proposing today are based on the latest fuel available through July. And although it decreased slightly, as you can see in July, it's still up about 54% over last year's fuel rates. And here circled in green are the final proposed mandatory collection rates for fiscal year '23. As you can see, like I mentioned, rates are down about 1% from June for service areas 1 through 4 and 6. And final service area rates are down 6% due to the cap since June. And the light green columns show the final proposed rates compared to June. Again, July's fuel index was up 53.6% over fiscal year '22. Therefore, we also applied the $417,000 in reserves for service area 1 through 4 and 6, so we can pay the hauler for increased fuel costs in fiscal year '23. So in closing, this is what we're proposing for fiscal year '23. These are all the assessment rates and tipping fees. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Pelowitz with our staff recommendations, and we're available to take questions.
Thank you, Christina. So I think we've seen this budget 3 times. We really appreciate the board's indulgence in watching this 3 times, but it's very important for us, this budget approval process. I think we've delivered what we indicated we were going to, starting all the way back in April and in June. It's unfortunate that we have these increases, but we do have the strong financial ability to manage them. I think certainly on the disposal side, the increases we have in here are reasonable, and I think they're prudent. And so I certainly recommend the board's adoption of the budget as it is. We will be asking the board to adopt the budget, to approve the assessment and tip fee rates, to approve the tip fee rate schedule, and to adopt 3 resolutions. If you have any specific questions about the budget, we're more than happy to answer them. If you have any desire to apply additional collection reserves to buy down collection rates, we can certainly give you some input as to what impact that would have. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Recognize Commissioner Kerner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to echo the comments of our Executive Director with our appreciation to professional staff and the employees of SWA for their hard work. And so I'd make a motion to adopt the budget.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Kerner and a second by Commissioner Marino. All right, and I think you need to read do you read into the record now?
I think,
Do them individually.
yeah, I'll read the 3 resolutions, the captions of the 3 resolutions into the record. Okay. Let me get
So I was just going to break these up into individual motions, I think is the proper procedure.
Okay, all right. Well, then we'll go ahead and take a vote on adopting the budget as presented. And all in favor? All opposed? That carries 7-0. And we have 6-1 showing, and let me just for the record, Mayor Weinroth has joined us during the discussion, and Commissioner McKinley is opposed to this, so it'll be 6-1.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the assessment and tip fee rates.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Kerner,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bernard. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? All opposed? That motion also carries 6-1 with Commissioner McKinley opposed.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the tip fee rate schedule.
And so we have a motion by Commissioner Kerner,
Second.
a second by Commissioner Bernard. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-02.
All right, Commissioner Kerner has made a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-02. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Marino. Any discussion? Mr. Pelowitz, will you please read? into the record?
Absolutely. This is resolution number 2022-02, a resolution of the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County, Florida, implementing provisions of Solid Waste Authority Resolution 2021-01 and Resolution 91-27 and Florida Statute 197.3632, establishing mandatory solid waste disposal and collection programs, adopting a schedule of property classifications, adopting rates, defining collection areas, ratifying and adopting the annual non-ad valorem assessment roll, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Thank you. I think we need a vote on this. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Oh, that motion carries 6-1 with Commissioner McKinley opposed. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-03.
Okay, Commissioner Kerner has made a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-03. Mr. Pelowitz, please into the record.
Resolution number 2022-03, a resolution of the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County, Florida, implementing provisions of Solid Waste Authority Resolution 2021-01 and 91-27, establishing mandatory solid waste disposal and collection programs, adopting a schedule of property classifications for governmental properties, adopting the annual disposal and collection assessment roll for governmental agencies, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion? Hearing.
Was there a second on that, Mr. Chair? I'll put a
yeah,
second up there.
Did we get a second? No? All right. Would somebody like to make Mayor Weinroth is seconding?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. No discussion. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, that motion carries 6-1 with Commissioner McKinley opposed.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-04.
Commissioner Kerner has made a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-04. Is there a second? We have a second from Commissioner Marino. Mr. Pelowitz, if you will please read this into the record.
Resolution number 2022-04, a resolution of the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County, Florida, implementing provisions of Solid Waste Authority Resolutions 2021-01 and Resolution 91-27, establishing mandatory solid waste disposal and collection programs, ratifying and adopting the annual service charge billing roll, providing payment periods, providing early payment discounts, providing enforcement, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? This motion carries, or this motion passes 6-1 with Commissioner McKinley opposed. All right, with that, I close this public hearing. All right. So moving on. We now move into our item number 7, public hearing to consider amendments to SWA Rule 4, standards and criteria for roll-off collection service.
Do we have any cards? There are no cards.
There are no cards. Okay. Can we have staff presentation, please?
Sure, I'm going to handle that. So our Rule 4 is our roll-off permitting rule, and Rule 4, basically the roll-off boxes are those large containers on wheels that you'll see in people's driveways. They usually drop for construction projects and renovation projects. We recently were advised, pursuant to a vendor that was looking to compete on a Palm Beach County Utilities procurement to haul biosolids. They notified us in backing up, Palm Beach County Utilities requires anyone to bid on that contract to have a Solid Waste Authority Rule 4 permit. That Rule 4 permit requires a local office and a business tax receipt in order to get that permit. This company out of Pasco County objected on the basis of the fact that a change in statute, Florida Statute 205-065, essentially prohibits any governmental entity from requiring a business tax receipt in, say, Palm Beach County if that business has a headquarters or location in another county and they only do transitory or intermittent or project-related work in Palm Beach County. So we had a hard requirement in Rule 4 that they have a business tax receipt. So we're eliminating that hard requirement. We've modified the language to comply with Florida statute. And we've also modified the language to provide some flexibility in the permit approval process that allows anyone who's applying for a permit with the authority, if we ask for information that they believe that pursuant to statute or some other reason they don't need to provide, that we can move ahead with the evaluation of the application and make a decision based on that information in the absence of the disputed information. That language is consistent with what's in our Rules 5 and 6 already. So we're basically updating Rule 4 to include language that we already include in our more modern rules. So if there's any questions beyond that.
Okay, I see I have a request from Mayor Weinroth.
No, I'm just going to make a motion to approve the amendment.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Weinroth. Do we have a second? We have a second by Commissioner Marino. Is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. And we, at this time, will close this public hearing. Moving on, old business, we have none. New business, the executive director still has none.
None, but I'll be handling the next item.
Okay, item B, and this is a joint venture settlement agreement.
So this item 9B1, I think you're all aware, and we've advised the board in the past, that there has been an ongoing dispute between the Good Company and A&A Staffing, who is their joint venture partner for Service Area 6 on the franchise agreements. This dispute has been going on for about 3 years. last year, we came to the board and asked for the board's approval, if you will, to allow us to go to court to seek a declaratory judgment action in this case so that we could ascertain our rights to request the good company to add an additional small business enterprise to their contract in order to meet the contractual requirements within that franchise agreement. We filed that. We had a hearing on a motion for summary judgment back in July. And then after that, we were required to participate in court-ordered mediation with all three parties. Coming out of that mediation was I think, surprisingly, to some extent, was a settlement agreement on both the underlying lawsuit between A&A and Good and a proposed settlement agreement between the authority and the other parties as it relates to this matter. This settlement agreement, which is before you today, does several things. The first thing it does is A&A is relinquishing its role under the contract. The authority will enter into a contract amendment with the Good Company to reflect that the Good Company is now the contractor under that agreement and not the joint venture. Good will propose an additional SBE, certified SBE, in order to meet the requirements of the franchise agreement going forward. The authority agrees to waive any penalties resulting from any potential noncompliance by the joint venture partners for the first 3 years of this contract and up to 60 days after the execution of this settlement agreement. And A&A releases the SWA from all liability related to our declaratory judgment action, the providing of solid waste and recycling services in Service Area 6, and the franchise collection agreement and the joint venture agreement. It's important to note, coincidentally, following this negotiated settlement, we did receive the court order granting our motion for summary judgment. So it's clear to say the authority is covered here, belts and suspenders all the way around on this. And we believe this is a very good outcome for all parties concerned, and I am requesting board authorization to execute the settlement agreement on behalf of the authority.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pelowitz. So can we get a motion to authorize the executive agreement to execute settlement agreement subject to the legal counsel review and approval?
So moved.
Okay, so Commissioner McKinley made the motion. Commissioner Weinroth, Mayor Weinroth seconded. Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, with that, all in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 7-0. And thank you very much for your work on that. All right, moving along, we are on to, looks like we skip over 9C, there's nothing. And then we're coming to our second add-on, and this is going to be 9D1.
And I will handle that one as well.
Okay.
So we have received a request for extraordinary rate increase from FCC Environmental. FCC Environmental is the franchise hauler for service areas 3 and 4, South County. That's from Hypoluxo Road south to the county line. They have requested this extraordinary rate increase in accordance with the provisions of the contract. Under the contract, 180 days to provide them with an opportunity to present to the board on this matter. The board has the sole discretion in granting or denying the extraordinary rate increase. This is more of a heads up that this is going to be coming to you in October. We're going to ask FCC to come in October and provide a presentation, present their case. In the meantime, staff will evaluate the documentation they've provided, do some analysis of our own so that we're in a position to provide you with some advice as to the direction this goes. This relates to the increase in the minimum wage that was passed by the voters back in 2020. We're at the point now where the minimum wage is going up $1 a year until it reaches $15 an hour. They have a major subcontract with A&A Staffing. That staffing contractor has requested an increase based upon this increase in the minimum wage. And so FCC has come forward and they're requesting additional compensation so that they can compensate their subcontractor as well. So if there's any questions, I'm available to answer them, but this will be coming to you in October.
Thank you. Mayor Weinroth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There we go. Just the question, I mean, obviously, this is not isolated in one particular area of the county. Are we going to anticipate seeing this coming up from the other haulers? And is this incorporated into your budget calculations for next year?
It is not incorporated into next year's budget calculation, so any increase for this upcoming fiscal year would have to come out of the reserves. Subsequently, they would be incorporated into the rates. This came after we'd already published the trim notice, so we have no ability to raise the rates following the posting of the trim notice. It is possible. My understanding is that FCC has the largest exposure to temporary labor sourcing. So there may be, some of the other haulers may be using temporary labor to some extent. As it relates to their own employees, the haulers' pay rates are generally well above the minimum wage. So I would anticipate it's possible. And certainly this may give others the idea to take a look at some other aspects of their operation and come forward with something similar.
I would just request that perhaps at the next meeting you give us an exhibit that would demonstrate what you anticipate the changes would be going forward.
Absolutely, I'll do that.
Okay, I'll make a motion to receive and file.
We have a motion by Mayor Weinroth to receive and file, a second by Commissioner Marino, but we also have more comments. Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to, I support the motion to receive and file, but, I think that the FCC would need to prove to us how much have they been paying their employees since they started the contract, because I'm sure they weren't paying their employees the minimum wage. So, I think that they need to provide to us the information, so in that way they just don't say that, oh, there's an increase in the minimum wage and we need a rate increase. So they need to prove it to us. Thank you.
Yes, and that's what we're going to be asking them to do, and I'm additionally going to be asking them to provide from A&A some documentation of what A&A is paying its employees so that they can demonstrate that the minimum wage is directly impacting them. That information they may claim is confidential to some extent, and we will maintain the confidentiality on it in accordance with the law, but I do think we need to see it.
And I would just like to add that, my comment. I concur with my colleague, Commissioner Bernard. I think this needs to be documented. We also need to understand that the funds are actually flowing to the employee, and they're actually the recipients of it. So, and Commissioner McKinley.
Yeah, just to follow up on Commissioner Bernard's comments, and he is spot on. Dan, is this the average salary or the actual salary of the employee?
Again, I don't know that right now. All they've provided was documentation of the number of hours of temporary labor on the project and what they're currently paying them, and then what the additional dollar would amount to. So I don't know, I haven't seen the underlying A&A data to know what they're actually getting paid and whether it's at or near minimum wage. And we need some additional information. They've only provided about 4 months of data. We need a full year of data. And like I said, I need the underlying data from A&A if I'm going to be able to evaluate it effectively. Because just because there's an increase in the minimum wage, it doesn't mean it affects all of your employees. I need to know how many of them are actually affected by it and how that's documented. Understanding that obviously, if you've got people who are at the low end, you start increasing, then you naturally you have to increase a lot of other people just to keep your pay plan fair, I guess to say. But again, we've been through these before with minimum wage increases, and we've done it with the recycling facility years ago when it went in. So like I said, we'll look at everything, and then they'll come in with what they have, and we'll come in with what we believe is reasonable.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none. So this is on a motion to receive and file. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. All right. Item 9E, Engineering and Construction Services. We have none listed.
There's none, thank you.
And item 9F, planning and environmental programs, none listed.
No items today, thank you.
Okay, and item 9G, financial management services, other than what we've already heard, no others. Okay, there are no other scheduled matters. Comments by our general counsel.
No comments, thank you.
Okay, comments by authority staff.
Yes, the first thing I'd like to do is thank the finance staff and the whole organization for their work in putting this budget together. It's one of our big events every year, and I think it's been very successful, and I'd just like to thank them for that. I'd like to make a special thanks to Barry Balmuth, who was our outside counsel who handled the Good and A&A case for us. He did a very good job and produced a very good outcome. And finally, I'd like to introduce our new Director of Customer Information Services, Mr. Paul Gonsalves. He's sitting out here. He officially starts on Monday. Paul has started with the authority in 2003, and he started in our equipment maintenance department as an oiler, and he's worked his way up to this position, and we're very proud to announce Paul as the new Director of Customer Service as an inside hire. So with that, that's all my comments.
Thank you, sir. All right, and we now move on to comments by the board, and I will start to my far left, and that would be Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate Mr. Pelowitz's comments in regards to the finance staff for working so hard on the budget. So thank you very much, Christina, for your hard work with your whole team, and Paul, because I know that, it looked bleak before, but, y'all did an excellent job with the budget. And also want to congratulate Paul. Now you're going to get the calls. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernard, and Commissioner Kerner.
No comments, Chair. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner McKinley.
No comments this morning, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll start now on my far right. I'll move down to Mayor Weinroth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, Mr. Palowitz, I've been reading that there's some vehicles, especially in waste vehicles, that are using waste to energy. Are we looking at that as a possibility for something in the future, especially with diesel being so expensive?
I do believe have we put in an order for a couple of electric vehicles so far?
Yes, we will be getting a couple of the F-150 Lightning pickup trucks just to start our dabble into the electric world. We have looked very seriously at the electric tractor trailers, but the technology is just not quite there yet in terms of the large tractor trailers, the range, the charging, the load capacity that they can carry. But we are watching that very carefully, and when the time comes, I think that's the direction that we'll end up going.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all my only comments.
All right, I see we've got a request from Commissioner Kerner.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor, what's a waste-to-energy vehicle? How does that work?
Well, again, we're creating electricity
I
right
get it.
here, waste to energy.
But
and
does it have
there
a
are
little,
vehicles now that are generating the power using waste. So
Wow.
I will send some articles through so that it can be disseminated.
That
and
sounds
you can
awesome.
be
Got a little
educated on the
burner in
subject.
there and a little turbine and everything.
Exactly, exactly.
Can't wait to see that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Kerner. All right, Commissioner Marino.
It's sort of like Back to the Future where they just fed stuff to the vehicles, so there we go. I have no comments today, thank you. But I do want to say, Paul, thank you. You've been in touch with our office already. Do fabulous work. Keep it up. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Sacks.
Thank you so much. I want to thank staff for the big work that you did on the budget. Appreciate it. It's not easy. And it's our third reading and went very, very well. I want to kudos to Mr. Pelowitz. You run this organization smoothly and professionally, and it's a pleasure to be on the board. And so the new fella in our team here, this is one issue that my constituents never complain about. Yet.
Exactly.
And I don't think they will. And that is garbage. No, it's because you all do a wonderful job. And when I get to the point where we have garbage to fuel, you can sign me up, because, you know, it's interesting. I have a Tesla. When you plug it in the wall, I'm using electricity, which is fueled by fossil fuels. So we're not there yet, but diesel is expensive. So I appreciate that question, Mayor. And I've been, you know, sort of reading up about the Fords and the F5s, as well as the Rivian has a new truck, Rivian out of Southern California. So we'll keep an eye on these electric vehicles. Thank you very much, Mr. Pelowitz. Thank you.
All right, well, I want to go ahead and make my comments, echo that of my colleagues to thank you, Christina, thank you, Paul, your teams for listening and making adjustments to the budget and really working hard to try and help keep the costs down on our residents and businesses here in Palm Beach County. I'm sure we're all appreciative of it. We understand, you know, we're not immune to inflation, but, you know, our ability to try and minimize the impacts and the really smart ideas that you all have come up with to help us do that. So thank you. Paul, welcome, and I know you'll be doing a wonderful job, because you always have in the past, but look forward to working with you. Hopefully, the calls are small and minimal, but we know that if they do arise, we can count on you and your team to help smooth things out with our residents and businesses. So thank you. And with that, Mr. Pelowitz, thank you and your folks. I mean, getting this issue, this legal issue resolved between the good companies, and that I know has been weighing on everybody for some time, and it was complicated, and you all got it done in a well done. So with that, I see no other lights on, no other comments, and it was wonderful being with you all today, and this meeting is adjourned.